Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, back to the transfer portal buzz, including Darrion Williams, the pursuit of a ball handler out front, and just the kind of man Texas Tech wants in the middle, and why he might already be in Lubbock.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. Hope you caught at least a few minutes of sleep overnight as we continue to navigate this frenzy known as a portal window, with another to open in just a matter of, well, could be hours, I guess, depending upon when you're listening to this, or maybe it already has. That's the wonder of a YouTube and podcast show. Chris, we're going to catch up on some things on a basketball front before we begin to turn our attention back to what's going on with Joey McGuire's Red Raider football program on some episodes upcoming this week. There is also a spring camp occurring. I think we're going to take some time to remind the folks of, if you've lost sight of that actually happening amidst all of this frenzy. But on today's episode, I want to get into a couple of things with you as it relates to Red Raider basketball. One of those will include a question from a Matador mobster I was texting with our guy Chuck back and forth this morning, discussing needs, wants, priorities, and the like. And one of those that seems to be a pretty common reference for fans out there I'm talking with, texting with, whatever, is a desire to get bigger. We've talked about that somewhat on the perimeter, but how about just in a natural, organic, big kind of state, that being a five-man, and one of those that could pair with and impact favorably, we would hope, JT Toppin. I want to get to that discussion coming up with you as well, including something else that we are being peppered with within the Matador Mob. That was questions. I mean, if it made a sound every time a text came in, it'd be like a jackpot. Ring-a-ling-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-ding. Why is Darrion Williams of interest to Tech fans again in recent days and hours? We'll explore that coming up in just a moment. But as for the general portal buzz, Chris, it's kind of, I guess, something that must be done here. As you look back over the last few days, you consider, 3 visits, 3 additions? And now there's a moment to sort of chart the course ahead. I'm looking ahead now. We're talking primary ball handlers. We're talking big men, as I've already mentioned. And then we're talking about spots for guys that may just wind up being really good basketball players that you have a shot out. Kind of hard to predict, but really the fact that, once again, Grant McCaslin and his staff have identified, visited with, or had them visit here and then seen commitments and additions is something I don't want to take for granted, because the hit rate continues to be really successful. And one of these, I think you've mentioned to us, right? Was it Tyree Bryan? A sight unseen commitment, I think, made?
Yes. I believe he has since visited, but I think a lot of this was put together and everything like that before he'd actually seen this place. And that, JT Toppin did the same thing a year ago. So that's not uncommon in this day and age, where you've got offers being made, deals being cut, timing is tricky. So I don't think that, that they'll put people on a Zoom and you walk around with the computer and like, hey, this is what this looks like, and hey, talk to this guy. I mean,
virtual real estate tour.
Exactly. It's as close as you can get to some of that, but yeah, I mean, so that's, I guess that's right. I mean, 3 for 3
so far.
Mm-hmm.
So far, and it's kind of hard to know like what develops where maybe they didn't quite pursue a guy in a way that they thought they would if he committed elsewhere or whatever might have happened. But as far as advancing some of these relationships, this is where we stand. So that's feeling good. Before we get to some of the sides and what's going on in the front court, and that including Darrion Williams, possibly or not, I want to ask you about that ball handler role, because you and I have been talking about this guy out there that could be another primary ball handler, but I think I'm still a little fuzzy on, I don't know how defined this is as it relates also to Christian Anderson, and whether we're talking some starter minutes or we're talking a guy that could be more of a reserve. And sometimes I feel like you tell me yes when I ask you questions like that. So I'm going to give you that option also, but could you give a little more context as to maybe what that guy actually looks like with Christian Anderson being in that picture out front?
I think Christian is going to be, like last year, one of your primary ball handlers, your point guard options. Is he the primary one, or is he is that part-time duty like last year? I think that question hasn't been answered yet. I think there's some thought that he is your long-term answer at point guard. Are you ready to push that button now? Or do we continue let's phase him into this? Because the thing about Christian is he's really good kind of off the ball too, when he's not having to. I mean, that's where a lot of the three-point shots come in, when he's allowed to be off the ball a little bit. I mean, he can handle it. There's no doubt in my mind. I just don't know what their thought process is on exactly how they want to set this thing up. But I will say, regardless of what their wants are, I do think you still need a primary ball handler with either some serious talent or some serious experience, or both. I'm not saying you have to go get the nation's leader in assists out there like you did last year. It's not what I'm suggesting. But if people remember what we talked about a year ago when we started looking at the pieces that they put in, and we turned out to be right in the sense that Elijah Hawkins was an addition that I think had some fanfare, but it wasn't like the JT Toppin one. And people kind of had like, okay, well, he's this or he's that, or he came from Minnesota. But I always maintained whoever was going to be in this role was going to be the most important guy on your team, because this is the straw that stirs the drink and makes all the rest of it work. And I think we turned out to be right or close to it, because without Elijah Hawkins, like with all that he brought, I just don't know if everybody's allowed to do their thing and do it as well as they did. And
I agree.
And I mean, and I just think that's when you reached your peak. And so I'm not saying you have to that you haven't already added your most important player. Maybe Christian Anderson will be that, but Elijah Hawkins also had the benefit of having Christian Anderson.
That's right.
Next to him. And I think Christian Anderson needs that as well. I admittedly haven't seen enough of, Tyree Bryan or Atwell to know because again, you're the way I look at it is there's an Elijah Hawkins replacement, there's a Chance McMillan replacement, there's a Kerwin Walton, and there's a Kevin Overton. And so Christian will play himself in this movie that we're putting together. Donovan, Atwell, and Tyree Bryan will play a couple of different, but you're still casting for your movie here.
Yes.
And I think somebody that can carry the load playing the one is still needed. And I think there's a couple of younger visitors set for this weekend that would be like Christian was last year, to which, again, I say that makes me really nervous if you're casting your movie with a true sophomore and a true freshman, if that's the deal. Or is this depth? But what if those freshmen are like Christian was last year?
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team at the college basketball tournament live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. We all know there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, curation makes it even easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the one and only lowest price guarantee, which means you get the lowest price, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed.
But what if those freshmen are like Christian was last year? I would say you're a hell of a director, because you I would say
Scorsese in this thing.
Yeah, I would say you pick really well.
You're talking about a high school or prep guy. You're not, true freshman.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm a little less scared by that than I was a year ago, I'd say, because of what we just saw.
Exactly. And I still think it gives you pause, because more often than not, if you're casting this movie, which you are, to try to win an award at the highest level, a major award, not a leg lamp, then I think that is a bit of a risk in turning over the reins to underclassmen to handle a lot of that. Doesn't mean that you can't and you won't be successful. But I just don't know what all the plans are. So yeah. It's a bit we say this all. It's a guards game, and especially so in when the calendar turns, and when it's January of 26, February of 26, and specifically March of 26. Whoever this collection of ball handlers would be, they have an enormous amount of responsibility. They control the pace of said game. They've got to be able to defend typically other really good players on the other team, which is what Elijah had to do repeatedly as you went through your tournament run. So we'll see. The freshmen that are coming in on visits, are they being cast for this role, or would they be an understudy? I don't know why I'm going with the acting and the directing things, but this is kind of the correlation that you're talking about here. So, and I don't know if there is an Elijah Hawkins equivalent out there, but I again, personally, I would hope to find that. I feel like that mitigates risk a bit, but we'll see what they come up with. But this is a key one here, and I know you're about to get into another couple of keys.
All we got are keys, Chris.
Darrion and a big
major keys. I would ask this, not specific to a player, but from a fan's perspective, which is the only one I got. When you're thinking about rebuilding a team for Grant McCasland, I'm kind of wondering, is it a situation where you think these are the guys I like, so I go out and I find these types of guys and they play this style, they fit this type of role or this type of mold? Or is it more year to year? Because I'm thinking in more year to year being case by case, because I'm thinking in the instance of Christian Anderson as a point guard, that could kind of change the complexion or personality of a team that goes from a major distributions guy to a scoring point guard. And some coaches would be like, well, I don't run a team with a scoring point guard. But I'm almost getting this vibe like Grant McCasland's just, I don't know, sort of in a situation to be like, we're going to make the best of the collection we have. Or how do you think he actually pursues kind of filling out those roles, if that makes sense?
Well, because I think more often than not, he does have a point guard that scores. Just go back and look at the last couple of 3 teams that he's had. Elijah is a bit of an exception, but Christian, when he was playing, next to, he's scoring plenty.
Yeah.
But the year before, it was Pop and Joe. That's just kind of the way the team was built. A lot of scoring had to come from that duo. The year before, he had Tyler Perry, that I think provided, when he was at North Texas, that provided a bulk of the scoring there in Denton. And
Elijah could score. I don't act like he couldn't, but
sure, but he wasn't asked to necessarily provide it. I think it was gravy, and I think it was he was asked to be a table setter and help all these other dudes out, and let's feed these guys, man. We got shooters all over the place. So I just don't know if we have some of these answers yet, because we don't know what the final again cast of characters looks like yet. And what we need to maintain that even when you do get the cast of characters, we can think we kind of have it figured out. But hell, they didn't really, or it didn't even really click until January.
True.
You know, I mean,
progress.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, I think it's one thing in July. It's one thing when you go scrimmage Drake and St. Mary's last October, and because I think it was after the St. Mary's scrimmage. I think it was when they scrimmaged St. Mary's in Phoenix, I think. And there was a lot of the national media that gets wind of these things, and it was all Kevin Overton talk. Kevin Overton, the best player on the floor today. Kevin Overton's now set to be an ex-Red Raider. So I just and he never started one game for you. I don't think all season. So I just think this thing's a marathon. But again, when we're casting this movie, man, you need another lead in the sense of being able to handle the ball in a primary role. Not that that's what Christian may be that, but Christian needs somebody else, I guess, is what my point would be.
As it relates to preseason polls, they're already trying to put you in Oscar consideration. We ain't even got a full roster.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if we can make a starting five yet, but there are.
You're right.
Crazy.
You could. I don't know if it's your ideal starting five yet, but yeah, you could absolutely make. Now, when somebody gets in foul trouble, I'm like, I don't. You know, Grant may be looking around like I got no. I mean, you just
looking down to you.
You're thin there. Yeah, that's right.
Looking to the radio crew to come in and run a few minutes.
I got a couple of trips up and down the floor for him.
Yeah.
You know?
I know you still got the tank top and shorts on under your clothes, just in case. That's why he wears tearaways, folks. Chris, we'll stick with this topic sort of, but I want to get to asking you about Darrion Williams, who, according to this show, has not officially been removed from relevancy or any kind of radar necessarily. I don't think anything's been ruled out. We've had questions about, should I keep or give up dreaming about this reunion happening? Is the ship sailing? And I don't think any conversation has taken it that far yet, but at least my perspective has been that the odds seem fairly long, and like with more time that goes by, and it's just my interpretation, seems like they get longer. But for whatever reason, over a number of hours or a couple of days, it seemed like there was some fervor growing about, I don't know, odds increasing that you could see a return here, at least to the tune of a ton of questions from the Matador Mob as to this happening or not happening. And I'm just wondering, and you can shovel it right back into the pit of irrelevancy if you want to, or you can light this flame if you want to. But is there a good reason beyond maybe some fan fervor or fan fodder that this was being discussed more so in the last days or hours?
What hasn't changed is that he is going to go through the NBA process. That is weeks and weeks and weeks away. I think that if you know, again, I mean, I don't want to. I would be careful here about talking in absolutes because I think that's not smart in situations like these. It just seems, as much as people may want this.
First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year.
As much as people may want this, and as much as maybe you even get a short-lived going, I think that unless this happens in the draft, I think he's coming back. I just think that's a bit I don't know if the right word is like far-fetched or unrealistic, because that's taking it too far. But I just don't know if that is most likely. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that during this lull, I'm declaring for the draft. I am entering the portal. Well within your right. I think you're trying to maximize leverage if you're his agents and whatnot. And that's what you are allowed to do in the system that we have. Texas Tech, on the other hand, I think, hey, man, I get it. Tip the cap. Appreciate it. But we've got to, again, we talked about this way before we got to this point, is like, okay, do you sit and wait and you could get left with nothing? Or do you get active and you try to fill a void and uncover some more options for you with your roster next year? To which I believe that they did, by the name of Mr. Watts from Washington State.
That's the other thing I was going to add to this. I kind of already thought you'd reeled one in that you thought was fairly similar, filling these shoes.
Well, you did.
There's only so many shoes.
And here's the if anybody listens to anything we say about this particular subject, I just think you have to understand there's only so many dollars here. And I don't know if you're looking at another big ticket item, which he would be. And we can grade the degree of how big ticket that is, small, medium, or large, but it would be a significant addition. There's a lot of money that has been allocated, whether it's front load, whether that is rev share, whatever. We've seen the salaries being reported nationally and all these things. I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty good. And when I see that there's, like, I think some of the national folks like Jeff Goodman saying there's 10 to 15 teams in the country that'll have over a $10 million payroll. Well, I'm smart enough at the math to say the Red Raiders are going to be one of those. That doesn't even count any kind of Darrion Williams like salary or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you start factoring in that and like, hey man, we kind of thought you were gonna do your own thing. Now here's some other theories. Here's some other things that could have played out. What if you really had no intention of wanting to go somewhere else, but you were trying to create leverage? And what happens if while you were gone and in Finland, a lot of the dollars out there for some of these rosters, they have been allocated to other folks already. I've seen the BYU stuff, attaching it to Darrion and all that, but I don't know how this plays out. Does he not have as many options as we thought? Did he really never want to leave? Is it like, man, I really wanted to stay here, but if I'm a first round pick, I'm out? To which Tech would be like, totally get it.
We have to. Fans would too.
Well, yeah. However, we have to take care of our program here for next year. We have to guarantee some things. We're not willing to roll the dice there. 7 come 11, high and low. Look out, baby! It's the come out roll.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. So you've got that. But there's there's everybody is trying to do what's best for them. Is what's best for them to coexist again? I mean, I can't. I think that would be great, and that's kind of what everybody wants. However, like, the dollars work? Does the role work? How do we? I mean, could you? What does this do to Watts? Okay, because see, the thing is, he could go Nico, I'm a leaving on you, like the Tennessee quarterback, and somebody could go, man, this isn't what I signed up for. And so, I mean, this isn't binding. Like, I'm out. So just a lot of stuff going on there. So
it's so crazy to consider too, because you have different contexts for different relationships.
Yes.
Like Watts and Williams are a great example. I mean, one guy is freshly here in the Big 12 Conference now, with a program that's been very, very successful, and he may view those circumstances a little differently than a guy who's been in it for a couple of years and now has as much or more leverage than he's ever had in his career. Now, is it enough to justify a move from Texas Tech? I don't know. I guess he's finding that out. But, I've said before already, I don't know that Texas Tech is the dollar for dollar most lucrative spot in America for Darrion Williams, because I think I even made the reference. There's a Al Davis somewhere to make Darius Hayward-Bay a millionaire. So, anybody that's got a checkbook can like a guy enough to give you a higher dollar amount. So I don't know if it's the biggest dollar figure, but I have a hard time kind of figuring how there's a more fruitful basketball ground for him with some financial incentives considered than what he's got going on here in Lubbock. But nobody knows what's motivating another man's path or the road that he takes. So I understand the moves that are being made. I just thought it was interesting that some things, for whatever reason, seem to be circling back and stirring a fan base up here.
It's
in some recent days.
It's because I do think he has been in and seen at the facility late last week. I do think that there were parts of his camp, including parent and everything, kind of re-engaging with community and various people in said community. All that is true. But I just don't know if there's any putting the toothpaste back in the tube at this point. And maybe there is. And
but there are things to sort out, I guess, if that happens.
A lot. And then even then, I feel like we're burying the lead here. The part that hasn't changed is I'm going through the draft process.
Yeah.
The draft process is in late May, and then the draft is like you have until June the 14th to take your name out of the draft. I think I'm right on that date, or it's close to it. So that's 2 months from now. And if you're Texas Tech, I just don't know if you can sit here on your hands and going, please don't get drafted. Otherwise we're screwed. Please don't get drafted. Otherwise you're screwed. So there's just a lot here. And I get people kind of want an answer. They want everything wrapped putting a bow on it and going, okay, here you go. We're done. That's just not how this is going to work, especially with this particular player. And I just would say in every case here, everybody is doing what's best for them with the information that they have at the time.
Yeah.
That includes Watts, McCaslin, Tech basketball, Williams, Williams's camp and his agent, and
Locked On Texas Tech.
Yeah, and all the things, and yeah. So we'll see. I just don't. If you're looking for quick resolution here, even if he were to say, "Man, I'm coming back," it's still got a caveat with it, unless I get drafted here or there. And then I'm out. So you're really not coming back, or this is where I'm going to come back. So
I hope people understand when we have these conversations. It's a daily podcast, which means we can check in on the latest rumblings as often as we'd like. So it's really not a put a bow on it kind of conversation until it is. And then we all know at the same time when the bow's there to be put on it. But I'm just curious. I know you ride the wave just like the rest of us. And of course, within the Matador Mob, the waves have been large recently. So I like to ask all the questions because you never know, Chris, just like I do, being in what you've been in for as long as you have, whether it's message boards or, text group fodder or whatever, you just don't really slough anything off. Hey, I heard this. Have you heard anything about that? Hey, I heard that there was a guy in a closet and somebody locked it on accident. Did you get no? Oh, whoops. Search coming up. So I don't slough anything off these days.
And you're smart to do that. As much nonsense is out there at times from burner accounts or fake this, fake that. There is legit news to be found, and somebody always knows something somewhere. And so, that's just part of the deal. That's just why you try to trust certain people, and when they tell you something, it's good as gold. And that's where I'm coming at it from on this stance. It doesn't mean I've talked to any of the parties involved, but I feel like I have a pretty good lay of the land of how we've gotten to this point. Where do we go from here? And the fact that there's kind of some, because I just would ultimately love to know if you set everybody down, all parties, what's your motivation right now as it relates to this stance? Do you really want to come back? You trying to get a better offer? Do we really want you back? Or are we trying to, do this? Whatever. And that's fair to wonder aloud about too. But hey man, the kid did phenomenal things here. And I personally, I've said this, I don't want him going to another Big 12 school. That's just I don't want to have to play against him. I would wish him nothing but the best. I hope he goes to the NBA and crushes it and comes back here and feels like this is a safe place and a place that I want to come back to and I'm attached to. Nothing would please me more. All of that is Pollyanna-ish a bit in that I don't know if we're all there just yet. So I think a lot needs to be sorted out.
All right. Appreciate your thoughts on that one. Before we get out of here, I wanted to mention this thought to you that I was texting with Corey, one of the Matador Mobsters, about. His general question was, do we have a void at the 5? Is Texas Tech pursuing a big man that would be considered somebody that can play starting minutes and sort of, in his view, be paired with JT Toppin? But there was also an interesting kind of a side to that question that he was bringing up, which was essentially, do you think Toppin could have even another level as a player if he was in a more natural 4 spot? Because Corey's considering him stretched sometimes when he's a 5. Is that seen similarly internally? Is that something that maybe we're seeing as fans that's a little bit distorted? What do you think about that? A big man void or maybe not one at all?
Well, you definitely need, again, in our movie here, there's definitely a spot open, a casting call for somebody that is 6'10" plus. For sure. Like we need this piece. You can't go into this next season without. And whether that's Federico or somebody that's not, we don't know who they are yet. I will tell you that.
Hold on, Chris, can I ask you, does that need to be somebody beyond Federico's skill set? Because he's big, but I'm kind of wondering, is he exactly that guy that you're seeing playing those number of minutes?
Well, I mean, let's think about what we're asking here is that Federico played next to and behind JT, and JT was the Big 12 Player of the Year. Yeah. So I think that, one, he likes to be stretched, talking about JT. I think he's a high-usage player. So if you have another 5, it's probably going to be in the similar vein of what Federico is, like a defensive type of mindset, like you're a garbage guy, like you're a lob threat, you're a rim protector. There's maybe some better versions of that out there, but you're not bringing in somebody that is like, we're going to run you at the pick and roll instead of JT. No, you're not.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, you're not. This is one of the most effective screen setters and rollers in the country, in the entire country last year. And he was able to knock down a few more threes, and I guess I was expecting as we went along here. But no, it would be in the same vein of what Fetty 2 times would be able to give you. And I just think the way I would look at that is that you need somebody like this. I think you would prefer it be Fetty, okay? Now, again, there's a cost there. There's Fetty's expectations. There's your expectations for Fetty, and then there's like a role and a dollar figure attached to it. We've got to get all that squared away and on the same page. And then if we can, let's do it again. I just think there's an asterisk next to his name because he's been through this before. He's part of your nucleus. He was part of your culture and your chemistry. And Grant would go out of his way to talk about this kid in a positive way. Even whenever I was going like, he kind of struggled to me, but Grant was like over the top, like with his praise and the kid's mood. I think he's like a culture warrior, right? From the standpoint of, and I just think you need some of that. So I would rather take my chances with him than an unnamed guy because I know what I'm getting. And plus I've been through the wars with this kid. He played through injuries, he played through multiple injuries here that I don't know if everybody, realizes. Shoulder, knee, everything. And he just gave you all he had. Sometimes we all wanted more, but he's still out there. He was pushing through with braces on and wraps on and everything like that. He's over there pushing through. So,
I think your answer to the context of the player, type of player that you want to pair with JT, kind of, to me at least, leads you right back to a guy already in your program, if you can have it that way.
You would hope. And I will say, to add to this, I think Mariel Akumtok is going to play the role of like EY, but maybe a bit more. There's maybe a bit more upside, maybe a bit more size, because Emily Ylahu is going to Portal. And I think Akumtok is coming back. Okay. And I think he can be a also some size. He's more of a stretch at times too. He's got a really pretty shot. And he came here and needed to get a little procedure done and all that, but he's going to be a freshman, but he's got some length and size. And so just factor him into some of what we're talking about here too, in my opinion, which is maybe a bit more than what you had a year ago. Cause see, EY was never really healthy, you know, all season. So.
Yeah, it was unfortunate to not see him be able to follow up with what was some encouraging stuff the first time around. And we got a glimpse of it, a brief glimpse of it again in year two, but some things just out of everybody's control. It couldn't get around. All right. That actually clears up that picture a little bit for me, because I thought I was just going to wrap it up with a simple question. Yeah, maybe we'll just throw it in here. I like it. Thank you for that. And I guess in the instance of JT Toppin and the thoughts on him, let's do what he wants to do. You know, you like to be stretched, JT. All right, we'll get you some minutes there. You want the pick and roll? All right, we'll get you some minutes. That's fine. Reigning, defending Big 12 player of the year. Might spend some time in conversation with him also regarding who he'd like to be on the floor with or what the other big men could look like. A whole lot still to come here this week, as I'm sure we'll have more basketball conversation to have. I do want to spend some time with you talking Red Raider football, as we've got a portal window coming up very soon on that front, Chris. And of course, spring camp soon to reach its culmination. So we'll get to some of that before the week is done as well, man. Appreciate the time as always and the perspectives as always. Looking forward to the next one. So we'll see you then.
Yeah, man. Big week we're in the midst of here, and it spills into next week and all that stuff. But yeah, spring football about to wrap and a portal window about to open. Here we go. I feel like we've just done this and we're still in the middle of one. Oh, wait. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of fun, though, when you remember that last one you said, hey, this could be your best ad yet. I thought that was cool. So let's do it again. Now for another window.
Okay. You got it. I'll see what I can do. I'll see. We need Stanford to fire their head coach again, or somebody like that out there to see if we can't make something happen. Yeah. So
absolutely good with that.
Anyway.
All right, man. Appreciate you and appreciate everybody for being out there. As always, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss a thing. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along, and shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link there to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.